So more bad news for California and Gavin Newsom. The Trump administration is not only just targeting the high-speed rail project by cutting off $4 billion worth of federal funding, but they're going after all of it. The Trump administration is looking to cut all federal funding to the state of California. And of course, media is losing their mind, and so is Gavin Newsom.
Donald Trump is threatening to defund California, but it's Econ 101. California is a donor state. We provide over $80 billion more in tax revenue to the federal government than the federal government provides to the people of the state of California. We help pay federal bills. So if Donald Trump's going to continue to threaten 40 million Americans that live in California, maybe we should consider withholding those resources.
Okay, so if you're listening to Gavin Newsom, you're thinking that he's reaching into the state's budget and he's sending $80 billion to the federal government. That is a blatant lie. What's really happening is that California has the most people in the top tax bracket, the most people paying federal income tax, and that number supersedes the number of federal funding that the government is sending to the state. So those are two separate issues that really have nothing to do with each other. But this is the argument he's looking to frame because he is betting on the fact that people won't know that information. They're just going to hear what he says and think, oh man, that's crazy. Why is California paying all this money to the federal government? That's not what's happening, folks. Now let's hear a little bit more details on what is actually being cut.
Well, Jessica, we're told that agencies have already started preparing what cuts they can make, and this has also made its way to Capitol Hill, where a whistleblower informed a committee that they're expecting cuts to all of the federal research grants in California. Now, we've also recently heard back from the administration, who said that no final decision has been made here, but there are also consideration for cuts specifically to the UC California school system. So there are a lot of questions swirling about the size and scope of the cuts here, but there is a lot of concern because this would be a pretty rare move to single out just California here.
All right, so here's what Gavin Newsom had to say. Californians pay the bills for the federal government. We pay over $80 billion more in taxes than we get back. Maybe it's time to cut that off, President Trump. Now, here is the reasoning, I believe, that the Trump administration is doing this. Why are they singling out California? It's because California is the one state since day one of President Trump taking office, they have yet to adhere to any executive order, whether it's illegal aliens that are continuing to draw on Medicaid, whether it's men playing in women's sports. We can go on and on and on. In fact, California has sued the Trump administration more than any other state in our country. So I believe this is a war just like it is with Harvard as pertains to President Trump. And you know where it's going to end up? In the courts.
Well, there are a lot of politics swirling around this. And of course, there is no love lost between President Trump and Democratic Governor Gavin Newsom. I mean, just recently, Trump threatened to pull all federal funding from California after an incident with a transgender athlete in a sporting event. And beyond that, California has been targeted over cutting water construction projects recently. As I reported, over $100 million funding cut there. And Trump has been very critical of California's response to the devastating wildfires that we saw. And just the long, bitter history between Trump and Newsom here really can't be understated. So everyone is watching to see exactly what the administration does, but we are hearing from sources across the government that this is being prepared and potentially underway.
I could reason with someone's argument against the Trump administration for making this decision. Targeting all federal funding, even funding that is attached to research grants. Yeah, I'm not too sure that is the best way to attack California. However, in this next story, I am 110% on board when it comes to cutting federal funding from California, and that is the disastrous high-speed rail project. We know California promised but did not deliver. In fact, I believe my 18-month-old will be married with kids before they finish that project.
Funding for California's high-speed rail system being stopped in its tracks. The Trump administration signaling plans to cut $4 billion in federal funding for the state's long-delayed train project meant to connect the state's major cities, but plagued by multi-billion-dollar cost overruns.
It's been over a decade since construction started on the California high-speed rail project with a goal to connect San Francisco to Los Angeles and extensions to other regions with trains rolling at speeds up to 220 miles per hour. Proponents of the nation's largest infrastructure project have touted leading the way into the future of transportation. But an initial budget of $33 billion and a completion date in 2020 has ballooned into an estimated $100 billion and no service debut until the 2030s. And that's only for a 171 mile long section between Merced and Bakersfield, far short of San Francisco or Los Angeles.
Now, the most frustrating thing about all this is not that money has been wasted, time has gone by, and it's just blaring incompetence from the state of California, especially the governor, but it's the fact that he continues to gaslight everyone on this issue. He still is committed to this project. He still believes it's going in the right direction, and he's not letting up. Take a listen.
You can see the progress we've actually made with our high-speed rail system. We're now on the other side of the environmental reviews. We're on the other side of the land acquisition. Real tracks are being laid, and the formal track that will be the first in the nation high-speed rail track is about to take place.
Well, the Trump administration has given the California High-Speed Rail Authority up to 37 days to counter and respond to the federal assessment.
Now, no matter what side you are on politically, the high-speed rail project is an utter disaster, and it's a perfect example of how the government, doesn't matter if it's federal or state, sometimes they can't get anything right. And the reason why that is because it's about money. Imagine how many people who's already earned money from this project but haven't delivered. Now, originally when it was announced, it made perfect sense. In fact, the route they originally had made perfect sense. But because everybody wants to get a cut, not only did they change the route, but it changed the time of completion, and it also changed how much it costs. Now, throw in the incompetence of Gavin Newsom and ultimately the ridiculous spending of California and mismanagement, and now you have this disastered high-speed rail project. I mean, that's as simple as I can make it. So for the third time in a row, the jobs report just came out for the month of May. And once again, the so-called experts, they expect us to believe they were dead wrong.
This is the third jobs day beat in a row, right? The third time the president beat expectations in a row. He's created over 500,000 jobs since he was inaugurated, and that's while cutting the federal workforce by 50,000 jobs, thanks to efforts to trim waste, fraud, and abuse. So I think this was pretty strong, and I think if you look under the surface, there's some really promising details. So all of the job gains since the president's inauguration were native-born Americans. All of them, right? And that contrasts to the last 2 years of a mirage of a strong labor market in which 2/3 of job gains went to foreign-born workers. That was because of the surge in immigration from the Biden administration. And everyone predicted all sorts of labor market doom when the president closed the border to protect Americans. But the opposite has happened.
The opposite absolutely has happened. And you know why that is because mainstream media and Democrats are caught in a bad habit. What is that bad habit? Well, they keep trying to tell people like you and me and majority of Americans out there that President Trump is wrecking the economy with tariffs. Everything he is doing is going to bankrupt this country, and everything that we love is going to go to shit. That is their message, ladies and gentlemen. And the problem is it's so extreme that it just can't be true. All right, now before we go any further, let's hear from today's sponsor, Crypto.com. Everyone loves the thrill of playing for a big prize, no secret there, but in crypto, the prizes don't get any bigger than Bitcoin. Play Crypto.com's Freedom Jackpoint from today until July 4th, and you might just land one Bitcoin payout. Each time you trade $50 worth of any token in Crypto.com's app, you earn a chance to win the jackpot. The more trades you make, the higher your chances of winning. That's pretty easy, right? Now, the Freedom Jackpot is available across the United States, so everyone's got a shot at winning one Bitcoin. So sign up today at Crypto.com through my link below, and you'll automatically join the limited time event. Don't lose this opportunity to get into crypto with a huge bonus.
And look, the real story here is the government jobs are down, and the small business economy is growing, and the private economy is growing. This is exactly what Donald Trump wanted to do. For inversing everything that Biden had done. Remember, last time under the Biden administration, 500,000 jobs were created, but they were in the government sector, right? And so it's so good to see that we're actually creating private economy jobs again. And look, in the midst of this is also some of the uncertainty that's coming from the tariffs and the unknowns of the tax cuts. So, but that's why we need the tax cuts. That's why the actions of the president on the tariffs. This is all about jobs overall, and the actions of the president are about jobs. And so, you know, I know we haven't touched much on the tax cuts, but really, you know, if we think about it, tax cuts now is jobs tomorrow. And so that's what the president wants, and I think that's what we're seeing today.
Now, there's still one problem, of course. Jerome Powell isn't looking to lower interest rates, even with this good news. And that's why President Trump posted this earlier. If too late at the Fed would cut, we would greatly reduce interest rates, long and short, on debt that is coming due. Biden went mostly short term. There's virtually no inflation anymore. But if it should come back, raise rate to counter. Very simple. He is costing our country a fortune. Borrowing costs should be much lower. Now, in his sentence, he's saying literally out loud why he really needs him to cut rates. It's because they really need to refinance the interest on our debt. I mean, that's really an issue here. Let's circle back to what the other side is saying, because we know Democrats don't like to celebrate anything that is positive for President Trump. And I'm going to show you an example. Here is MSNBC reacting to this report. Take a listen.
Jonathan, so this report is being scrutinized for any signs that our current tariff and trade war is leading to a slowdown in the economy and perhaps even some early signs of a more profound weakening of the jobs market overall. Now, if hypothetically companies are cutting costs and slowing activity down over all of the economic and trade uncertainty, this could be an early read on that jobs data. And yes, maybe we do see some of slowdown. So job activity actually, yes, did slow down, but it's still positive, and it came in better than what was forecast for. But that concern about the jobs market involves a lot of the different parts of the current economic condition that we're seeing. Tariffs and trade policy are at the heart of it. The jobs market has remained relatively strong despite all of the uncertainty that we are seeing, especially with China. Now, some experts are already taking note of the potential early signs of labor market weakness in places like the data on unemployment.
Okay, so allow me to translate what's going on here. See, the left is allergic to great news when it comes to President Trump. Now, let's be fair here. They did have to revise the job numbers for the month of April. That is true. But overall, there has been more jobs in the economy, especially in the private sector, than what the experts and the economists were expecting. So is that good news or is that bad news? Well, I guess it just depends on who you listen to, right? And this actually takes us to our next story, because depending on who you listen to, the big, beautiful bill is a big, beautiful disaster, a big, beautiful breakup, a bill that's going to kill 13 million Americans. Yeah, that's what this next story is all about, the big, beautiful bill and the chaos that is continuing to erupt on Capitol Hill. But where I'm going to start first is what Hakeem Jeffries came out and said just today about this bill. Take a listen.
Right now, we're focused on killing the bill. The GOP tax scam hurts everyday Americans and rewards billionaires. That's not what we should be doing at this moment in time in the United States of America. We should be building an affordable economy that lowers costs for hardworking American taxpayers. The GOP tax scam, this one big, ugly bill, does the exact opposite. It will raise costs.
Yeah, see, here's the problem with Hakeem Jeffries and Democrats in general. They want to kill the bill. They think 100% of it is wrong and bad for our country, but they don't offer an alternative. Now, Scott Adams happens to be blasting the administration as well, particularly Stephen Miller, because according to Stephen Miller, this is a reconciliation bill that cuts taxes, seals the border, and reforms welfare. It is not a spending bill. There is no pork. And of course, he gets community noted because we know Elon Musk owns the platform. And according to multiple nonpartisan groups, they have put out reports showing that the reconciliation package will add over $2 trillion in debt spending and potentially over $3 trillion when you add increased debt payments. Now, listen, I didn't write this bill, obviously, but I'm not naive, ladies and gentlemen. The last time we had a surplus was when? Back when Bill Clinton was in the White House. So what does that mean exactly? Every single reconciliation bill up to this point has only done one thing: added more to our national debt. And the deficit will continue to take place. So yeah, when Scott Adams says they are all spending bills, he's spot on about that. Now, here's Russ Vought responding to that criticism when he went on to Glenn Beck and said this. Take a listen.
The only spending in this bill is spending that is specifically designed strategically, that is conservative, and we would do like border security, right? If that's an appropriations process, we're headed towards a shutdown. It looks like the first term we can't actually have non-defense fight over cutting because we're fighting for the wall. This bill includes that type of spending so that it clears the field strategically for us to have a massive fight on non-defense spending in the appropriations process. We did talk very rarely about that dynamic, but I think it's one that your audience will find very exciting.
Yeah, so I guess if you're trying to figure out who's telling the truth, you'll have to wait till next year. That's when the results are going to roll in. And we'll know for a fact if the big, beautiful bill raised spending, raised the deficit, or if it truly did deliver on President Trump's agenda. And ultimately, we want the president to be successful here, okay? But again, this is what the White House is promising, and Democrats, mainstream media, and I guess now Elon Musk does not agree. But I want to know if you agree with what we talked about in this video today, starting with California. The Trump administration is cutting literally all federal funds, including that disastrous high-speed rail project. Let me know what side you're on here. Do you support all of it or just the high-speed rail project? Also, this entire situation about the economy and the jobs report that continues to prove the experts and the economists wrong. What's your reaction to that good news? And then the big, beautiful bill. At this point, we're all arguing past each other, so I guess we'll have to let the results roll in and see who is right. But let me know what you guys think about all of this in the comment section below. Now, earlier today, Pam Bondi made a stunning announcement. Abrego Garcia is back in this country. He's in handcuffs and he's facing charges for human smuggling. Now, in some way, the Trump administration has outmaneuvered the courts. We dive into this story and more from earlier. So if you're interested, all you have to do is click on that video because it's coming up right now.